don't know wrestling, this man has held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts, the Crockett Cup. This man's a legend in his
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Welcome to a very special edition of Hero Television, as we're going to be spending part 1 and part 2 with radio legend Kevin Matthews, also author of Broken Mary. John, your thoughts on this 2-part episode we have of Hero Television?
Well, Kevin touched so many lives when we were listening to him on the radio, but the cool thing is he's touching more lives through Mary, or Mary through him, perhaps, now. And it's an amazing story, and it's really probably my favorite episode yet.
So sit back for a special edition of Hero Television as we go into the story of Broken Mary and Kevin Matthews.
Welcome to another edition of HeroTV. We're here live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My co-host, Paul Myers. And we have a very special guest, Kevin Matthews.
Why, yeah, we're close. Yeah. Is it wrong?
No, it's not
wrong, not at all.
And where are we? They're in church with Kevin, and they're sitting really close to one another. Nothing wrong with that, boys?
Not
Nice and comfortable.
It's a little surreal, but
Yeah.
it's very nice, very cozy.
Yes. Nothing with that.
Well, if we may start at the beginning, Kev. How did you decide you wanted to get into radio? How did you get into radio?
Man. You know, I went to college, Grand Valley. I chased a woman, a girl who I loved, Dawn. She and I worked in just outside Detroit in a pharmacy. And she went to Grand Valley, so I decided I'll go to Grand Valley. She dropped me, and she left me for Ferris State. And then what I ended up doing is now I'm here, I'm in Grand Valley. And I was going to go into education. Believe it or not, I was going to be a teacher. And my roommate, who was studying medicine, he worked at a little radio station, campus radio station, and I got involved in that. And one night, the program director was in the hospital because he smoked marijuana that was laced with paraquat. At that time, the government was actually spraying Mexican marijuana fields, President Nixon, so lungs were destroyed. They said, hey, you want to do a radio show? And that's how it started. I just went in. I had no idea how to work I can remember I had thousands of albums. I pulled out a Miles Davis album, put it on, and that was history. You know, I just stayed there. And then eventually, our radio station, we lost. The FCC took our license away because of me and others, and the school took the whole radio station away.
Well, I was going to say, there's a funny story behind that, though.
I thought it was funny. I said, I was doing mornings at the time, and at that time, there was no internet. We didn't have cell phones. Students had clock radio, and they had to get up. And I would always be late, and that meant that they would miss class. And one morning I got up, our President Lubbers of the university was murdered overnight. So there's no classes, and oh man, they got really upset. And so they took the radio station away from us, and the FCC, it just went away. And then I got hired at a commercial station in Grand Rapids, and eventually went to St. Louis for a little bit. Then I got a phone call from Paul and Gary Meyer and Greg Salk and Jimmy DeCastro, and came up to Chicago.
When you were growing up, did you know you wanted to get in the entertainment aspect of maybe radio, TV, or be an entertainer?
You know, I remember I told my dad that I wanted to get into radio. I was at the dinner table. I didn't have any idea. I didn't want to. He wanted me to work at GMC, and he got really mad. And I thought, oh, if this upsets my dad, then I'll do it. So, I don't know. I mean, I always loved watching what television there was, Johnny Carson, or, Don Rickles, or Dean Martin Rose, or, I loved that stuff. I loved it. Part of my growing up, I used to make parents laugh. They get drunk at cocktail parties, and then little monkey. Do your little impression of President Kennedy. Walk barefoot and talk like President Kennedy, and they'd laugh. And, if I made them laugh, my dad wasn't hitting me. So I used humor to just get out of beatings.
It's effective.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, who were your heroes in life? A lot of people have sports people or entertainers, but when you were growing up, who were your heroes?
Honestly, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, I can't believe, it's been many years. Honestly, it was Martin Luther King, because I grew up outside Detroit in Pontiac, and it was a war zone. I was little, and I remember I didn't understand why so many people hated this guy and wanted him dead, and look at this guy. I would have to say heroes are people that were assassinated, believe it or not. I mean, the president, I was 4 years old, saw that, or a lot of baseball players, Willie Horton, whole 1968 Tigers, Al Kaline, especially, Willie Horton, was the Detroit riots, and he decided, hey, everybody baseball, and he was a hero. Willie Horton, Martin Luther King, President Kennedy, even though I was so young, and those were the folks.
Okay, when you were on the Loop, you were part of something really magical. Me, Kev, Stephen, Gary. At the time, obviously, you were having. Did you realize the impact that you had at that time? Enjoy it. Did you soak it in?
No, Johnny tormented me. He a lot, and Steve and Gary, and I mean, it was between the Jimmy DeCastro, our general manager, or Greg Salk, or then Gary Word. Are you kidding me? It was owned Chicago, but when I say we, audience, I did everything with the audience. We school together, we got married together, we had kids together, we went through trials and tribulations together, everything together. I came to your house, you came to Pine Valley or Park West or the Chicago Theater. It was just a constant Animal House. Dean Wormer didn't take it away. That was a great time.
But now looking back, another person.
Now, that do is now that the Loop is gone, and you can't bring back, the Loop and put it on a different frequency. That tells you how ridiculous radio is today. I mean, it's gone. But I do want to make a documentary about the culture at the time, because I look at a point, I'm down at Riley's Daughter. We're giving away Jimmy Buffett tickets, getting drunk at Riley's Daughter. O.J. Simpson's on the freeway in his Bronco. The Bulls at the same time are in a playoff game. Ferris Bueller is like 5 years old. Second City, Bill Murray. Culturally, what was happening in Chicago at that time was unbelievable. And I want to bring that moment together in a documentary.
Is that in the planning stages?
Yeah, it really is. There's a few folks at Pugsley, my old producer, a brilliant writer. John Roach is a great director. John did, worked with Stephen Gary, and he did the Jim Roberts Cavalcade of Sports. And he's brilliant at producing this, and yes, it's in the works right now.
With everything that when you started college radio and then you made it to the Loop, what was the biggest change that you saw? Because when you go into radio, you think hey, all I gotta do is hit the button and it's all. I loved what we did. I knew I started to break when Larry Wirt left and went to. At the same time, I knew when
radio stations took advertising dollars from Sirius XM and said, why not listen to us? We don't play commercials. We play anything, you know. That was like the Trojan horse. I'm thinking, oh. And it did. It did. Radio cannibalized itself, especially, I mean, you've got radio companies that are bankrupt, about Adolf. How do you stay in this, you know, Ponzi scheme? And I looked, you just buckle up, because Jimmy DeCastro went out to California. Larry took off. Unfortunately, Steve and Gary broke up. Johnny went to California. Howard left Chicago, and, you know, went and eventually, you know, he's done so well over at Sirius. Where'd everybody go? Hey, guys, where'd everybody go? And at that time, I knew I wanted to come back to Michigan. I wanted to go back to the state, because this is where my career, and I just wanted to, I hate to reinvent myself, but I was given the opportunity to come back and put radio on the air, different formats, different radio programs. I really liked it until our station was by Cummings, and it was like a leopard come in and just touched you. Oh, I have leprosy. Let me touch you. I'm going to die in about a month. Yeah. So it just died. Eventually, what I ended up doing is a lot happened. I got MS, that out of the blue. I lost my job. He all called up and said, putting this network together. Want to, you know, I've been lucky to do one show a week. I love it. But I've also, you know, with a disability, I've worked with people with disabilities. I like to work with people. Everybody, one person watching this a week is going to come down with MS. I really like telling people that, you know, just diagnose, you know, it's, let me talk to you. To talk to somebody with MS, who has MS.
And with all the viewers and all the people you over the years, I mean, generations, it's not just one thing, like off air, listening at our hall in high school, Kevin Matthews on, time to put the headphones on, I don't need to do homework, I'm going to listen to the show, and all the fundraisers you've done, everything that you've done, you know, the people that you've affected, step back from the radio aspect, because we're going to talk a little bit about Broken Mary, the radio aspect. What do you see? Because I know what I see of Matthews, because everyone, when they hear Kevin Matthews, think of this, but what do you see when you step back?
You know, I remember I had a microphone. I never wanted to be above my, you know, forget it. I was a listener on radio, and you had all the input, you know, we hung out together. But at the same time, I knew I've got a microphone, it's really powerful. The whole city, we were talking to 10 million a week. If all of a sudden I could help out an organization, we had the Jim Shorts golf outing. 10 years kicked out of. I recently, and charities that tried to raise money, but I recently ran into Smith out in Maryville in Des Moines. And I remember the last time I saw him was on a golf course, and he was looking at girls in bikinis, and I saw him recently, and I said, you know, I'm so sorry. We had the best laugh, and I want to help out. It was nice to help out Father Smith or help out their people before 9/11. We were cops and rescue folks and military to help out, you know, especially organizations. And boy, you come through every time you did money for cancer and kids. If Father Smith needed money or Sister Honora needed diapers for newborns that are cracked, you came through, and it was. it's always it's so genuous. Is that a word?
It is now.
It is.
Now, you created
Yeah,
You're so generous in time and money, and I love Chicago for that reason.
Kev, you earlier in the interview, you had said how we all kind of grew older together, and we knew your family. So speaking of your family,
Right.
Can you give us a little update? Because when our friends found out we were coming up here, everyone immediately, how's Trev? How's Teague?
You know, my wife is a saint. She's, I look, she is a saint. I look at, Janet Dahl's a saint. I look at Brandmeier's wife. These women that's, oh boy. And I look at Trevor, my son. He's a musician out in LA. He plays in a great group called Dawes. They're on the road. It's so fun because this fall they're going to be on the stage with ELO, and they're great musicians. My daughter Teague, she is actually living close by now. She's got a great husband, 3 kids, a little 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, I think. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed.
Now, were they aware? They were young, but were they aware of what was going on? How big their dad was.
I think how Trev got I was in Ed Zeppelin. I love the music. And Trev would just hang out in recording studios or on stage or during rehearsal. And, my guitarist, Dave Urich, taught Trev how to play guitar. And, my wife actually was a backup singer at one time. Teague, she was just, she just is such a unique woman too. I got great kids.
Well, I think the thing is that with everyone growing up and listening to you, what kept you motivated during those times? Because with radio, there's the good days and there's the bad days, but what kept you going?
When you take a look at, somebody that is on a roof in August, or somebody who's, a steel worker, or somebody who's unemployed, or a cop, or, you walk, I look, I've got MS, and I do treatment at the Lax Cancer Center. And so I'm having treatment, but across from me there's this young, she's got to be 38, and she's a mom, and she's got cancer, and I'm thinking, I don't have it that bad. I mean, we're given every day is a great day, and I just try to get up and, I had a very dear friend of mine who was Iroquois Indian. I used to hang out with a lot of Indians, as you might recall. And what I loved about his name was Santa, he'd get up and he'd say, I just try to outgive God every day. And he taught me so much. He had nothing, yet he was the richest man on the planet. He's an awesome person.
And also, too, with all the things that you've done, I think people know you for Kevin Matthews, they think of Jim Shorts, and all these different characters that were part of the show. How did that come about?
Jim, when I first got into radio, the general manager, it turns out, he was such a sweet guy, but I terrorized him. And if I created a character, I could blame it on him. He really thought there was a guy, who's this idiot Jim? So I could create characters that could get away with stuff I couldn't. And, that's how a lot of those started.
Now, we're going to talk about Broken Mary in the second part of this interview. You already mentioned you want to do a documentary. Are there any other career goals that you have? You would still
I think if anything, I'm really, I love my family. Like I said, I love to do what I can with people with disabilities or medicine, the research, and to help out children's charities and whatnot. But at the same time, this story of Broken Mary, when I found the statue of Our Lady, our Blessed Mother, it definitely changed my life, and it's touched people all over the world. And so I'm that statue's caretaker. That's keeping me busy in a good way, a beautiful way.
Now, you had talked, yeah, I read your book, same book. You had talked about, you did some things in the radio, not horrible, but some things you do have regrets about. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think you've got to read the book,
Okay.
which is Broken Mary, Journey of Hope. You can get it at Amazon.com or Dynamic Catholic. Because what I did was I wrote this book with a Franciscan nun. She was my producer. She didn't want anything to do with me, and it's in the book. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to write a book that was just, I want to be honest and raw and real. It was like going to confession. And this statue in Mary is, I might as well tell you what this is. I found a statue. I heard a voice that said, get your wife some flowers. And I look up, there's a flower shop. No coincidence. There's no coincidence, okay? And, it's 2011. I've got MS. All kinds of stuff happening with radio. It's done. It's over. And I'm getting out to go to the front door, and I saw this dumpster. And I immediately saw this statue it's a Mary statue, and she's broken in half. There's two pieces, and I walked over. She's laying next to the dumpster. There's garbage, and her hands are missing. She's just dirty mud all over her. And I looked, and I just, my heart sank. And then I heard this voice. Truly, I heard this voice that said, will you deny me, and will you deny my mother? And it just took my breath away. I walked into the flower shop, and I was the only customer, and the lady says, can I help you? And I said, I'd really like to buy that statue of the Virgin Mary outside. And she said, no, it's not for sale. And then I heard that voice, will you deny me? Will you deny my mother? And right then, I just said a quick prayer. I just said, please, I got to take this home. And I said, I said, I'll give money to, there's nuns that live out here, and I'll give money to them. I didn't know that there were nuns. It just kind of came out. It's like, what am I talking about? And the lady, she goes, I know your voice. She goes, the guy in the morning, or were? And yeah. And that door open, and I said, listen, I'll give money on your behalf if I can take the statue. She said, okay. So I didn't even buy flowers for my wife. It was so hard to walk because it was slippery, and I took one piece of the statue, and I hate to talk about women's, but she is really heavy, Mary. And I put her in, I got the second half, I put her in the garage, and I turned up the heat, and I said, Mary, I'll take care of you. And that moment, I look back, and it's that moment where, Mary really took care of me. And in this, I told a priest, Father Mark, this is his parish, I called up and I said, I have a statue, and she's broken, and he gave me a ornament maker, go take her in the spring. I took her, and he her, and he goes, oh, we can put her back together. I can put new hands, and we can paint her, and she won't even look like anything happened. I said, no, I really want to keep her broken, because you really remind me. I mean, I was at that time broken. I want to keep her broken. I want to call her Broken Mary. And took her. We put her together, but she still has broken hands, and she's chipped. There's nothing. There's her completely untouched, though. And blessed her. And the minute we blessed, miracles started to happen. And statue now is known all over the world. People take the statue. She goes into prisons. She goes into hospice. She goes into intensive care. We've the rosary is more on that. How I've recorded apps so people can download and recite the rosary. You don't have to be Catholic. Anybody can say that. Those are being downloaded all over the world, and the statue's really touching a lot of people.
When you said, when you found the statue and you're broken, where was your, I guess, level of faith at that time before the statue?
You know, people to this day, when did you become a Jesus freak? Yeah. And I'm like, when I was 4, because I grew up in a household that was pretty dark, and, and there was, as much violence in the house as there was outside the house, and my dad drinking and whatnot. And I can remember just 4 years old, just saying, I heard of this guy named God or Jesus, and, because I was a little Catholic kid. Jesus, just take me to heaven, I just want to die. Just please go to me. I want to just go to heaven. So at the age of 4, and I honestly know that he really did take care of me at the age of 4. Eventually he's just always been there, but I know that along the way, I would let go of his hand. You got to remember that when Mary gave birth to Jesus, Herod said, kill every newborn male. Think of that is a true sorrow that Mary felt at an early age. I've just given birth to the Savior, yet we've got to run to Egypt, because the loss of little children at that time, that's how come the unborn, and when we lose 70 million unborn babies worldwide, what's happening, my heart goes out, especially to the women that feel so guilty now, is I say to them as a man, you'll never have a baby, but I don't judge, but if you need healing and forgiveness, here's the rosary. Go commit to Mary, commit to the rosary, commit to the unborn. And it's amazing how women are literally going back, they're going to the rosary. It's amazing.
Kevin, now, you're very spiritual. We've talked to you. You're a very genuine guy. You don't come across as pushy with your beliefs, but you're very strong in your beliefs. Do you think that, has that hurt you in any relationships with either friends or work?
Well, if somebody's going to judge you, then are they really your friend? I will never deny. Again, I was asked, are you going to deny me? You're going to deny my mother. And I'm not going to do that. I'm happy. I look at it this way. Knowing what you know now about the Titanic, if you two were getting on the Titanic and the captain greeted you and said, hey, would you like a life jacket? And can I put you down in a lifeboat? Chances are you're going to go, yeah, I'll take a life jacket. I'll go, yeah, I'd like the lifeboat thing.
Yeah, that option.
Well, that's what spirituality is offering you, a lifeboat, a life preserver. And it's not my business to judge. I just know that there are so many people out there that are so broken, and everyone has one thing in common. We want to be loved. And that's what I love about, Jesus. Politicians killed him. His friends, the gatherings killed him, especially the politicians and the priests. What was his message? Love. He was such a threat. We're going to get rid of you. It's amazing. It's simple. It's love.